with circuitry, the feedback from anything occurs at the same moment that the event occurs. With the advent of electric information pickup, the entire world has been dumped in the Western lap as our baby. How do you order it? Now, in the Renaissance,
so the electric simultaneity of the telegraph shocks the dimensions that have been established by the furniture.
From the 3rd century AD till the Renaissance, the reason the book survived was scripture. With Gutenberg, the press reached out and grabbed antiquity for the first time. The Middle Ages had no way of printing the ancient books.
Well, everywhere at once, under a single date. But that's not to say it's controlling them.
oh no. Gutenberg presses picked up the whole of antiquity and dumped it into the Renaissance Western lap. Caused huge chaos, and it jumped.
Put a satellite ring around the planet and all arrangements on the planet disintegrate. It becomes garbage. Garbage means clothing.
Garb, clothing or dress, especially of a distinctive or special kind.
Today, our entire Western world has been jumped by being outmoded by fast-moving information. The whole of backward societies have been dumped into our laps, which is our responsibility. The Americans have lost their sense of identity. The country is falling apart physically and politically because of the speed of information. The American bureaucracy, political and educational, was set up for very speeds of the printed word and railways.
One of the peculiarities of new forms, electric forms of retrieval, is that they reach back for many centuries to grab things that man had forgotten long ago. In all of this, you can see yourselves in a very peculiar position. The United States is the only country in the world founded on literacy. All other countries had been going for centuries before Gutenberg. The United States is the only country in the world that began with the latest technology, Gutenberg technology. It is therefore having the hardest time of any country in the world in orienting itself in the electric age.
At electric speeds, nothing in the USA makes sense. TV, unlike the fantasy world, the escape world of the movies, TV creates enormously serious and realistic-minded sort of person.
This is what people do not expect from the future or the past. Now, the future comes up in the rearview mirror, and I'm going to take a look in the rearview mirror and tell you about two recent discoveries of mine that really knocked me for a loop. I didn't expect to make them, and I have been sort of flabbergasted by them ever since I did make them. The first one was the discovery that Americans, North Americans, that includes Canada, go outside to be alone. unlike all the other people on this planet, we go inside for company or community, and we go outside for solitude and aloneness. I made this discovery when I was working on the puzzle over why do Americans resent advertising in movies. I made this discovery when I was working on the puzzle over why do Americans resent advertising in movies. Theaters all the time. And we resent it, I resent it if I occasionally have to look at an ad in a film or during a film, and I feel like going and asking for my money back. And I asked a group of students of mine to think about this and saying, why would you feel this way? Because nobody else in the world, Europeans fill their movie houses and theaters with advertising. So do English people. Why do they not mind it and we mind it? And one of my students said, well, we go outside to be alone. We go outside for privacy. When we go to a movie, we go with our dates, or we go to a theater, or to a concert. We go to be alone. We do not go to socialize. Now, all the other people in the world go out to be with people and do not go to be alone. Now,
well, forgive my impertinence, but has anybody asked you why you are sometimes difficult to understand?
Because I use the right hemisphere when they're trying to use the left hemisphere.
Okay, well, I'll try and get back on the line.
So you see that when the people ordinarily people are trained to try to follow you, connect everything you say with what they last heard. They're not prepared. To use their wits. They're only prepared to use the idea they picked up the first time and try to connect it to another idea. So if you're in a situation that is flexible, where you have to use your wits and perceptions, they can't follow you. They have preconceptions that phase them out at once. You see, that's left hemisphere. I use the right hemisphere a great deal, which is a world of perception, no concepts. I don't use any.
Got you. And you don't try to connect things. You just let the right hemisphere take over and let it go.
And watch what's happening. So that's the way the cookie crumbles sort of thing, where you don't know what's going to happen, but you follow the crumble.
color space or tactile space. To the sense of touch, there are no connections, there are only resonances, beats, rhythms, closures. And to smell, to all the other senses, kinetic movement and so on, there is no continuity, no connection, only discontinuity. And this idea of the visual man, the Euclidean man, that space is continuous and uniform and connected, does not apply in the electronic age to any of the senses except sight. And under electronic conditions, even the visual has lost that continuous character. Under especially television conditions, it becomes once more a mosaic, a collage of resonant dots, spots.
Are you, Professor McLuhan, seeking to approximate that in any way when in your book, or your books, you have the chapters readable in any sequence? They don't have to be read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on?
That, in this particular book, The Cliched Archetype, was the result of having simply created a file of chapters alphabetically, and having noticed that they had a kind of dynamic pattern or logic from the absurd to theater. The first chapter was absurd and the last chapter was theater. And it seemed that the intervening order was also a dynamic one. This is the way the book had grown. And so we just hit upon the idea of retaining it as a pattern of growth. The idea of pattern recognition, one of the peculiar new awarenesses of our time, is the result of speed up.
Space and time and intervals between peoples were pulled out. That was shortly followed by Cubism, which pulled out the space intervals in painting. And the visual connections in painting were pulled out by the Cubists. I'm always insisting upon the artist as a sort of herald of technological change. And as a matter of fact, we've worked on this quite a bit. Art in general gives you about a generation, at least a generation of warning or notice in advance of technological change. The art forms themselves will take on characteristics that really belong to something that has not been invented yet or hasn't surfaced yet. Seurat and Rouault were painting television long before television.
The first was time sharing, which was being advocated very hard at the beginning of the decade. The key thing that was being observed was that there was a lot better way to interact with a computer. The second major idea, though, of the last decade has been the notion that computer networks were not only needed but were valuable, and they are gradually coming into fruition.
The computer technology has been moving in a way that nothing else people have ever known has moved. Here's a field that gets 1,000 times as good in 20 years. The communication field hasn't been able to keep pace, but the melding of computers and communication and the switch to digital communication technology, aided and abetted by satellites, is doing something pretty good for communication.
The problem is much like small civilizations or small cities trying to develop separately and not having any way of sharing what they learn with other groups. And if that continues to happen, you don't have a civilization. So that the necessity was to provide a mechanism so that what was learned one place could be transferred effectively and directly to other places without redoing it all and learning it all over again at each place. The problems were not in the computers, we found out. The computers could talk to them.
Side 1
is that it angelizes man. It disembodies him. It turns him into software.